That shit just made me cry.
Yes, my whole...
My heart. You heard her scream,
yes.
right? The she in here, like I said. I told you she the in here. You heard her scream. Y'all heard her scream, right?
Yes.
It sounded like she in the bottle.
Oh my God. Let me see if they heard it on the other side.
I heard a scream.
Because it made my whole heart stop.
Girl, what? That's why I've got tears coming out my fucking eyes right now.
He posted the car for sale on Facebook Marketplace the morning after she disappeared. The same gold Toyota Camry that surveillance cameras caught circling her workplace 3 times before she got in. The same car found with front-end damage and her phone case nearby. Her aunt, who calls herself a seer, goes on social media days later and describes the exact location of her body before police find it. Abandoned building, 3 people involved, one with dreadlocks, an argument in a car. No sexual assault, just violence. She's right about almost everything. Keon King had kidnapped a woman earlier that year. Video evidence, witnesses, charges filed. But the victim didn't show up to court. Case withdrawn. 6 months later, Kada Scott is gone. And her aunt predicted where they'd find the body before police even had a suspect. This isn't just a murder case, it's a system failure with a supernatural twist. Welcome to Viral Crime Psychology. To my loyal subscribers, I pray your families remain safe and protected wherever they are. If you're new here, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Here, we bring you the untold details of true crime cases, the facts others leave behind, and the truths that deserve to be heard. Today we examine what happened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when a 21-year-old man with a history of violence was allowed to walk free, and a Penn State graduate with her whole future ahead of her paid the price. Tonight, we'll walk through every decision, every missed warning, every moment that could have changed the outcome. We'll examine how a 23-year-old entrepreneur with a beauty salon, a clothing brand, and dreams of competing in pageants ended up in a shallow grave behind a school that had been closed for over a decade. And we'll ask the question that haunts everyone who knew her: could this have been prevented? Have you ever had a feeling about someone that turned out to be right? An instinct you couldn't explain but knew you should trust? Drop your story in the comments, because what happened to Kada's aunt is going to make you question everything you think you know about intuition. May 2023, Penn State University, communications degree in hand. While her classmates were sending out resumes and filling out job applications, Kada had already mapped out something bigger. She wanted to create, not wait for someone to give her permission. By the time most people her age were still figuring out their next move, Kada had opened her own beauty salon in Philadelphia. Not a chair at someone else's shop, her own business, her own space, her own vision. Then came the clothing brand. Fashion had always been more than just an interest for Kada. It was how she expressed herself, how she connected with the world. Her Instagram reflected that. Over 5,000 followers watching her journey, liking her designs, commenting on her posts. She documented everything. New inventory for the salon, sketches for upcoming clothing pieces, behind-the-scenes moments with friends. Her feed was active, vibrant, constant. This was a young woman who stayed connected, who checked in, who let people know where she was and what she was doing. The overnight shift at the terrace at Chestnut Hill was never meant to be permanent. It was fuel for the bigger plan. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., working at the senior living facility on East Abington Avenue, banking money to invest back into her businesses. She lived with her mother in East Mount Airy, kept her circle close, and stayed in touch. Always. So when Kada Scott went silent, no Instagram stories, no text messages, no phone calls, no activity at all. The people who knew her didn't wonder if she was busy. They didn't assume she'd lost her phone or needed space. They knew immediately that something had gone catastrophically wrong. Kada was building her dreams at 23. What were you doing at that age? Let me know in the comments. Keon King was 21 years old when he turned himself in to Philadelphia police on October 14, 2025. He was originally from Dover, Delaware, but had been moving through Philadelphia for months, staying at different addresses, connected to different circles. On social media, King presented himself as a local rapper, someone making moves in the underground scene. His posts showed designer clothes, stacks of cash, and the 1999 gold Toyota Camry that would later become central evidence in a kidnapping investigation. The image was carefully constructed, charismatic, confident, connected. The reality was something else entirely. King maintained multiple fake social media accounts under different names. He used these profiles to approach women he didn't know, offering them money, rides, opportunities to connect. The tactic was calculated: approach under one identity, build trust, then shift the interaction before the target realized who he actually was. One ex-girlfriend would later describe him as someone who seemed caring at first, attentive even, until that attention transformed into control. His criminal record had been building in real time. December 2024, DUI charge out of Delaware County. March 2025, he fled from police during a traffic stop. That same spring, King was arrested and charged with kidnapping and assault. The details were disturbing. He had allegedly thrown a woman into a car in front of her house, assaulted her, and eventually released her. Video evidence existed. Witnesses came forward. His own 2-year-old child had been in the back seat during the attack. The case was marked for trial. Then, in May 2025, the charges were withdrawn. The victim didn't appear in court, not once, but twice. Without her testimony, the prosecution couldn't move forward. Keon King walked out of that courthouse without consequences. But the pattern didn't stop. In June 2025, King fled from police again, this time on foot. A third woman, someone separate from the kidnapping case and separate from Kada Scott, filed for a protection from abuse order against him. That order was active and enforceable until 2027. Law enforcement sources would later confirm that King had been a suspect in yet another case involving a fourth woman. The behavior was consistent: manipulation, control, targeting women who were polite, kind, or simply unaware of who they were dealing with. On October 2, 2025, just 2 days before Kada Scott disappeared, King was charged with driving without a license. He was processed and released. 48 hours later, Kada would leave her workplace in his vehicle and never return. Here's what makes this case different from a typical predator story. Kada Scott wasn't romantically involved with Keon King. She had a boyfriend. She wasn't looking for a relationship, wasn't seeking attention from other men. Investigators believe she may have simply been friendly, the way she was with everyone, and King interpreted that politeness as something more. Or worse, he didn't care what it meant. He saw an opportunity, and he took it. In the weeks leading up to October 4th, Kada Scott told her family and friends that someone had been harassing her. Phone calls from numbers she didn't recognize, messages that felt off, intrusive. She described the person as an unknown individual, someone she couldn't identify, couldn't place. But investigators would later question whether that description was accurate, or whether Kada simply didn't want to admit she knew exactly who was contacting her. The theory that emerged during the investigation was this: Keon King had been using fake social media accounts and blocked phone numbers to approach Kada without revealing his identity. He could watch her posts, track her routine, send messages that seemed to come from different people. By the time Kada realized the harassment was all coming from one source, it may have already been too late to understand the scope of what was happening. What makes this case more complex is what investigators uncovered about October 4th itself. Earlier that evening, before her shift at the terrace at Chestnut Hill, Kada had been on a date. She met a young man at Topgolf, a popular entertainment venue in the area. They spent time together, and she arrived home at 9:45 p.m. The man later cooperated fully with police, providing details about their interaction. He described Kada as easily approachable, someone who was friendly, open, willing to engage in conversation. He explained how they'd met. He had simply rolled down his car window and struck up a conversation with her. She responded. She was kind. She didn't have her guard up the way some people might in a city like Philadelphia. That openness, that willingness to be polite and engage with people, was part of who Kada was. But it was also something Keon King may have been counting on. King wasn't a complete stranger to Kada. He was from the area, a familiar face in the neighborhood. It's possible she had seen him around, maybe nodded hello in passing, never realizing he was studying her movements, learning her schedule, waiting for the right moment. When phone records were later analyzed, investigators found that Kada and Keon had been in communication on October 4th. The messages suggested that she had agreed to meet him after work, possibly believing it was something brief, something harmless, a quick transaction maybe, a ride, something that seemed innocent at the time. Would you get in a car with someone you'd seen around but didn't really know? Be honest, because Kada's friendliness may have been exactly what he exploited. Between October 1st and October 3rd, 2025, the harassment Kada had been experiencing seemed to escalate. Friends would later recall that her unease was growing, that she mentioned feeling watched, followed. On October 2nd, 2 days before Kada disappeared, Keon King was charged with driving without a license in Philadelphia. He was processed and released the same day. Then came October 4th, 2025. The timeline of that day would become the focus of the entire investigation. 6 p.m. Kada is at home, preparing for her overnight shift. She's texting friends, checking in the way she always does. Everything appears normal. Later that evening, she goes on the date at Topgolf. She arrives home at 9:45 p.m. 5 minutes later, at 9:50 p.m., she leaves for work. That's a 5-minute window between walking in the door and heading back out. Barely enough time to change clothes, grab her things, and say goodbye. Her mother watches her drive away at 9:55 p.m. Just before 10:00 p.m., Kada arrives at the terrace at Chestnut Hill. She parks her car in the employee lot, the same spot she always uses. She walks inside. Her shift is supposed to run from 10:00 p.m. to 6:00 a.m., 8 hours. But Kada is only inside the building for approximately 20 minutes. At 10:20 p.m., co-workers see her leaving. She's carrying her keys, her phone, her Apple Watch, her iPad. She takes everything with her. But her car, her own vehicle, the one she drove to work every single night, stays exactly where she parked it. What happened in those 20 minutes? That question would haunt investigators for weeks. Surveillance footage recovered later would show the gold Toyota Camry circling the parking lot at the terrace at Chestnut Hill. The timestamp matched the exact moment Kada left the building. The same car would appear again hours later, this time near the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School in Germantown, a location that would become central to the investigation. Investigators believe Keon convinced Kada that whatever they needed to discuss or exchange would be quick. He knew she was at work. He knew she couldn't be gone long. And that's exactly what he used to his advantage. Remember this. Kada took all her belongings but left her car. That tells investigators something crucial. She didn't plan to be gone long. She thought she was coming right back. 10:20 p.m. Kada Scott walks out of the terrace at Chestnut Hill and approaches the gold Toyota Camry. There are no signs of a struggle in the parking lot. No witnesses report hearing screams or seeing anything unusual. Investigators believe she entered the vehicle willingly, which means Keon King had convinced her that whatever was about to happen was safe, routine, quick. The theory that emerged during the investigation is that King used a tactic he had employed with other women, the pretense of a drug transaction. Not that Kada was involved in anything illegal, but that he may have framed the meeting as something transactional, something that required a brief conversation away from cameras, away from her workplace. It's a method that creates urgency without raising immediate alarm. I have something for you. Let's talk in the car. This will only take a minute. What happened next can be traced through digital evidence. Kada's phone pinged one final time near Aubrey Arboretum. Her entire digital life went dark simultaneously. For a 23-year-old woman in 2025 to go completely offline is an immediate red flag. This wasn't someone who occasionally checked her phone. This was someone who documented her life in real time, who stayed in constant contact. The silence meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. The route from Chestnut Hill to the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School would have taken roughly 15 minutes. At some point after the assault, Keon King moved Kada's body to the wooded area behind the abandoned school. He dug a shallow grave, covered it hastily, and left. The location was deliberate, hidden enough to avoid immediate discovery, but not so remote that it required extensive planning. He needed to dispose of evidence quickly, and this was the closest option. By midday, her disappearance is reported to the Philadelphia Police Department. Within hours, flyers are printed and distributed across the city. TikTok videos begin circulating with Kada's photo, her name, the question everyone is asking: where is Kada Scott? The response from the community is immediate. People share the posts, search parties form, volunteers comb through neighborhoods, parks, anywhere she might have been. On October 10th, police focused their search on Aubrey Arboretum, the location where Kada's phone last pinged before going offline. K-9 units, helicopters, and drones are deployed. Officers search 55 acres of dense woodland, checking trails, clearing brush, following every possible lead. They find nothing. No sign of Kada, no physical evidence tying her to that location. By October 14th, the case is transferred to the homicide unit. This doesn't mean investigators believe Kada is dead. It means they need their most experienced detectives and their most extensive resources on the case. First Deputy Commissioner John Stanford is clear in his public statements. We are still treating this as if Miss Scott is still alive. That same day, October 14th, Keon King turns himself in to Philadelphia police. He is processed and held on kidnapping charges. His bail is set at $2.5 million. The next day, October 15th, police recover the gold Toyota Camry at the Gypsy Lane condominiums in East Falls, just off Lincoln Drive. The vehicle has heavy front-end damage. The windows are tinted so darkly that officers can't see inside without opening the doors. King's family members live at the complex, which explains why the car was parked there. The vehicle is towed to a police evidence garage for processing. On October 17th at 10 p.m., Philadelphia police receive what Deputy Commissioner John Stanford describes as a very specific anonymous tip. The caller directs them to the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School on the 6100 block of Ardley Street in Germantown, the same area near Aubrey Arboretum that had already been searched. But before police can mobilize their search, something else happens. That same night, October 17th, community members who have been searching for Kada on their own arrive at the abandoned school. They're walking the property, checking the wooded areas behind the building, refusing to give up. Then one of them notices something: fresh dirt under a wooden board. The soil looks recently disturbed. There's a smell faint at first, then unmistakable. One of the searchers later described what happened next. We began to try to dig with our hands, and there were maggots there under the ground, and there was a strange smell coming from the ground. They stop digging. They call police. They wait. October 18th, 2025. Police arrive at the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School with K-9 units and a full investigative team. The search is extensive: 3 stories of abandoned building, exterior grounds, wooded areas surrounding the property. Then, in a shallow grave behind the school, investigators find human remains. The body appears to have been there for approximately a week, possibly less. The community found signs of the grave the night before police arrived. That fact would spark outrage and accusations that law enforcement could have found Kada sooner. If you were searching and found fresh dirt and that smell, would you keep digging or call police immediately? What would you do? The case against Keon King was built through layers of digital and physical evidence that investigators began collecting the moment Kada Scott was reported missing. Phone records became the foundation. Kada's cell phone data showed she had been in communication with Keon King on October 4th. The messages were exchanged in the hours leading up to her disappearance, and again shortly after she arrived at work. The content suggested she had agreed to meet him. Whether she understood the full scope of that meeting is something investigators may never know. What the records did confirm was that Keon had been the last person in contact with her before every device she carried went silent. Surveillance footage told the next part of the story. Cameras at the terrace at Chestnut Hill captured the gold Toyota Camry entering the parking lot at 10:20 p.m., circling once, twice, 3 times before stopping. The timestamp matched exactly when Kada left the building. Hours later, that same vehicle appeared on cameras near the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School in Germantown. The route, the timing, the location, all of it aligned with what investigators suspected had happened. Keon's behavior after October 4th showed a pattern of evasion. He got rid of his phone, the device that would have contained text messages, location data, evidence of what he'd been doing that night. Then, the morning after Kada disappeared, he posted the gold Camry for sale on Facebook Marketplace. It was a move that suggested consciousness of guilt, an attempt to distance himself from the one piece of physical evidence that tied him directly to the crime. He stopped using his known addresses in southwest Philadelphia, moving between locations where family members lived, avoiding anywhere police might look for him. Deputy Commissioner Frank Venori later described King's actions in a press conference.
I said, I would tell you that there's 3 people involved. I would tell you that one person has dreadlocks. 2 other people are involved. It's a female. I know one female personally, but there's some jealousy things going on.
October 2025. While search teams are combing through Aubrey Arboretum and police are following digital leads, Kada Scott's aunt, Bree White, goes on social media. Bree describes herself as a seer, someone who can perceive things in the spiritual realm. And before any arrests are made, before police announce any suspects, before human remains are found, Bree begins making specific predictions about what happened to her niece.
It's a real tough situation because it's just unreal.
Bree White back in Chestnut Hill from Delaware today with her son. She says they couldn't just sit back as her niece and her son's first cousin remains missing.
To be honest, I'm just hurt right now. I'm filled with rage, anger right now. I'm just trying to stay strong for my cousin.
We've been out here since yesterday in the rain, in the parks, in Aubrey, and today we decided to come out here over in this area. To me, something is very strong over here in this area. And at this point, it's really just about getting out here and looking for her.
White describes herself as spiritual and says she's relying on that for clues to help her find her niece, 23-year-old Kada Scott. Kada was last seen more than a week ago at the terrace at Chestnut Hill, a senior living facility where she worked, on the evening of October 4th. Police say her car was found in the parking lot, but her keys and cell phone are missing, her once active social media quiet. They do not believe she went missing on her own. Investigators tell Fox 29 the last place they could trace her phone before it went off was the Aubrey Arboretum, which led to a thorough search all day Friday, but they did not find significant evidence. Desiree Whitefield, a concerned neighbor, also wanted to help today, focusing in the area around the senior living facility.
We can see something that maybe have been missed, and we can look for cameras. I could not sit down. I could not just watch on TV and see the anguish.
White and her son also searched nearby Pastorius Park. They're not giving up.
We're going to find her. That's a fact. We're definitely going to find her. And it's going to get handled.
Everyone that has breath in their body and that has love and peace in their hearts, should be out here.
Police have not confirmed any female accomplice or jealousy as a motive. This remains unverified. But Bree White wasn't just making predictions from home. She was out searching. She walked through Aubrey Arboretum in the rain. She covered Pastorius Park. She spent hours near the terrace at Chestnut Hill, moving through the same areas where police were focusing their investigation. Her son was with her, refusing to give up, checking every possible location. So the question becomes, was Bree White experiencing genuine spiritual visions, or was she using her knowledge of the geography, her understanding of the neighborhood, and information she was hearing from family and friends to make educated guesses? Was it intuition sharpened by desperation, or something beyond rational explanation? On October 18, 2025, DNA testing confirmed that the human remains found behind the Ada H. Lewis Middle School belonged to Kada Scott. Keon King was formally charged with kidnapping in connection to Kada's case. Additional charges included recklessly endangering another person, use of a communication facility, tampering with evidence, and stalking. The kidnapping case from earlier in 2025, the one that had been withdrawn in May, was refiled on the same day King was arrested for Kada's disappearance. His bail was set at $2.5 million, reflecting the severity of the charges and the danger investigators believed he posed. Keon King has refused to cooperate with investigators. He has not provided information about what happened that night, where he took Kada, or whether anyone else was involved. While he sits in custody, silent, Kada's family continues to search for answers. Do you believe Aunt Bree had a genuine spiritual vision, or was it educated intuition? Drop your thoughts below. This one divides people. Before the remains were found, before investigators confirmed what everyone feared, Kevin Scott appeared on Good Day Philadelphia. He came back the next morning, too. His brothers stood beside him, a wall of family refusing to let Kada's name fade from the headlines. Kevin wore a hoodie with his daughter's name printed across the chest, positioned directly over his heart. He spoke directly to whoever had taken her. Let my daughter go. Bring my daughter back home. She has loved ones, family, friends that all care about her. She has a bright head on her shoulders, a great future. People make mistakes. If she's alive and breathing, just get her back home. We want her home. It was a father offering grace to someone who didn't deserve it, a father willing to forgive the unforgivable if it meant his daughter could walk through the door again. He was appealing to humanity in a person who had shown none. When the remains were discovered on October 18th behind the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School, the community's grief turned to anger. Residents gathered behind the crime scene tape, watching police process the area, and their frustration boiled over. Some of them had been out searching the night before. They had found the fresh dirt, smelled the unmistakable odor, seen the signs that something was buried there. And now, in the harsh light of day, they were watching law enforcement confirm what they had already known. Voices rose from the crowd. You could have found her faster. Deputy Commissioner John Stanford addressed the criticism during a press conference. I understand people's frustrations amid the tragic circumstances, he said. I'm not offended by some of the passion in some of the remarks. I'm not offended at all by emotion, and this is an emotional situation. However, I know what we have done and the amount of hours that have been put into this process to try and locate Miss Scott. Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker released a statement on the evening of October 18th. There are no words that I can employ to remove the unimaginable pain and turmoil that the family of Kada Scott is experiencing with the tragic loss of their beloved daughter, sister, and loved one, she said. The city will support Scott's family in their time of need. But support doesn't change the fact that Kada Scott is gone, and it doesn't answer the question that haunts everyone who followed this case. Could this have been prevented? Kada Scott's story is a lesson in missed warnings, ignored instincts, and systems that fail the people they're meant to protect. For young women, the message is clear. Trust your instincts about harassment. If someone is calling you repeatedly, sending strange messages, making you feel unsafe, report it immediately. Don't wait for it to escalate. Don't convince yourself it's nothing. Document every interaction. Save text messages, voicemails, screenshots. Create a record, because if something does happen, that evidence becomes critical. Background awareness matters, even for people who seem familiar. Keon King wasn't a stranger to Kada. He was someone from the neighborhood, a face she may have seen around. But familiarity doesn't equal safety. Politeness is not worth your life. If someone makes you uncomfortable, you don't owe them conversation, explanation, or access to your time. For the system, the lessons are just as urgent. Victim support must be stronger. Protection orders need enforcement that actually keeps people safe. Pattern recognition saves lives. When someone shows the same behavior repeatedly, that pattern should trigger intervention before another victim is harmed. Cases should not be withdrawn simply because a victim is too afraid to testify. The system should protect them well enough that they feel safe coming forward. For communities, the first 48 hours after someone goes missing are critical. Kada's family reported her disappearance immediately, and that quick action allowed investigators to start tracking digital evidence before it disappeared. Community tips break cases. The anonymous call that led police to the abandoned school came from someone who saw something and spoke up. Don't assume someone will turn up on their own. Don't wait. Keep missing persons' names alive. Keep their faces circulating. Keep the pressure on. Kada Scott was 23 years old, a Penn State graduate with a communications degree, the owner of her own beauty salon, a clothing designer building a brand from the ground up, an aspiring pageant competitor who had just started exploring that world and wanted to do more. She was a young woman who deserved to keep building her dreams, to see where her ambition and creativity would take her. There are still unanswered questions. Were there other victims who never came forward? Women who encountered Keon King and stayed silent out of fear or shame? What exactly happened in those crucial minutes inside the gold Camry between the time Kada got in and the time her phone went dark? Will Keon King ever reveal the full truth about what he did, where he took her, whether anyone else was involved? As of now, he's refused to cooperate with investigators. He sits in custody, silent, while Kada's family searches for closure they may never fully receive. The reason we tell Kada Scott's story isn't to sensationalize tragedy. It's to honor her memory and ensure her light is never forgotten. Nothing can undo the heartbreak her family has faced, but by sharing her story, we bring awareness to the dangers so many young women silently face: manipulation, control, and warning signs too often overlooked until it's too late. Kada's story is a reminder that one wrong encounter, one ignored instinct, can change everything. She was friendly, she was kind, she was approachable, and someone took advantage of those qualities. By keeping her legacy alive, we hope to spark awareness, inspire protection, and prevent another soul from being lost. If you know someone being harassed, if you see patterns of control in someone's behavior, if something feels wrong, speak up. Report it. Document it. Don't wait for the situation to escalate. Don't assume it will resolve itself. The harassment Kada experienced in the weeks before she disappeared was a warning sign, and she told people about it. But no one knew the full scope of what was happening until it was too late. Has this case changed how you think about who you trust or how you respond to harassment? Share your thoughts below. Your comment might help someone else recognize danger before it's too late. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more cases like this, where we examine the details others miss, where we honor victims by telling their stories with care and accuracy, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stay safe, look out for each other, and remember Kada Scott.